I'm not a big fan of the derogatory term snowflake, but if I said someone's a snowflake, you'll know what I mean. They will be emotionally unstable, self-obsessed, egotistical, will go out of their way to be offended by things and live their whole life on this knife-edge balance between running away crying to their designated safe space or throwing a full-on tantrum like a toddler. In fact, that's quite an accurate way to describe a snowflake, someone who should have been hit more often as a child. But a curious thing is it appears many snowflakes are going on TripAdvisor and leaving bad reviews for historical sites around the UK, and the one they seem obsessed by is the Tower of London. So what do these emotionally retarded, mentally deficient people have against the tower? Well, according to one review, problems started before he'd even entered. Arriving at the queue with his wife, this chap described being met by a man in a ridiculous costume. I assume what he means there is one of the yeoman warders, also known as the beefeaters. And this warder refused to let this man and his pregnant wife skip the queue, but he did let disabled people by. Straight away, I'm on the side of the beefeater here, because disability isn't a choice, pregnancy is. And if this bloke's wife was so heavily pregnant she was struggling to walk, what were they doing at the Tower of London? Inside the tower, more snowflakes have left negative reviews, saying that, first of all, the free tour can be quite disappointing. Being disappointed with something you haven't paid for. Others saying it's completely unsuitable for people with young children because so much of the tower is about torture and execution. What were they expecting from the Tower of fucking London? One lady was incensed that her tour guide had spoke about the murder of Anne Boleyn, and if you're not from the UK you may not be aware, Anne Boleyn was one of the wives of Henry VIII and she was beheaded. This woman was incensed because she said discussing the murder of Anne Boleyn was promoting rape culture and violence against women, whereas we all know it's just a historical event. Other people complained that the rooms were quite small and the archways were quite narrow. The Tower of London was built 942 years ago. Back then, people were smaller. It's unrealistic to think that there should be walls knocked down and arches made wider because a few fat bastards struggle to get around it. And I can say that because I'm quite tubby myself. Although some of the most wokest complaining comments came from people who said they were disappointed they weren't allowed to try on the crown jewels. Now, on the outside chance that some snowflake has made it 3 minutes into the video without crying, I'm no expert, but I think I can explain this. The crown jewels are officially priceless, meaning they are not insured. But to take one jewel, the Star of Africa, that sits in the Queen's sceptre, that is a diamond which is 530 carats. It's estimated if the crown jewels ever went up for sale, they would fetch between 4 and 4.25 billion US dollars. So it's understandable the public can't play with them. I mean, just imagine, we all know that single mother with her unruly children of many colours. Now imagine them coming to the Tower of London. You don't want them kids fucking about with something worth more than an aircraft carrier. So if you are of a snowflake persuasion, please know the history of Britain is a history of violence. We are exceptionally good at it. Also, if you don't like pomp and ceremony, stay the fuck away from London. Now, I love it. A few years ago, I was down near at Horse Guards Parade, and through the archway came a soldier marching, one of the Queen's lifeguards, red tunic, white plume, carrying a sword. He's trying to clear the arch. And there was one tourist who was almost like a caricature of a Japanese tourist, because the guy just stood there with his massive SLR digital camera clicking away, apparently oblivious to this soldier screaming at him to move. And even if the guy doesn't speak English, if a man with a sword is shouting at you, get out of his way. But without missing a step, the soldier came level with him, with his free hand, picked the guy up by his throat and threw him into a wall. Seconds later, the household cavalry, the Queen's Guard, came through on horseback. It was magnificent. But the best thing for me was from the angle I was standing at, I could see that after the soldier who'd done the throwing had left, he walked into the barracks where he was met by another soldier who'd also seen the same incident, and he high-fived him. I have never been prouder to be British than watching one soldier congratulate another soldier for throwing a foreign tourist into the brickwork. If you've been offended by any of that, tough.